Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're out at the range with what you're probably thinking looks an awful lot like an L85, the British service rifle. And that's because it's intended to look an awfully lot like the L85, but it is not. This is a lower kit that's married to a BRN 180 upper from Brownells that is a retro rifle build that gives you the feeling of being able to own and shoot an L85, a firearm that we've never really had access to here in the United States. And so it's a really kind of a cool gun. Now, before I get into today's video, I already know that this isn't a fighting rifle. This isn't a self-defense rifle. This isn't a competition rifle. This isn't anything like that. This is a clone build for pure fun. And I've said it 1,000 times here on the channel. You're allowed to own guns that are simply fun to shoot. They don't have to serve a practical or tactical purpose, and this rifle will fall into that category. But with all that said, it works just fine because just like the original rifle, it is based heavily on the AR-180 action, and we'll get into that with today's video. But first of all, let's start off doing a little bit of shooting with this bad boy. That's fun. I'm a clone rifle type of guy, and being able to have access to something like this that gives me the feel of shooting an L85 is pretty cool. Let's get into today's video. A lot of folks ask me, how can I get involved in the firearms business in that particular community? And one of the best ways to do that is to become a gunsmith. Every gunsmith I know is just overbooked with work. It's a very good living. And so if you would like to become a gunsmith, you need to go to a gunsmithing school or become an apprentice for an existing gunsmith. But Modern Gun School is an accredited college that also works with veterans in the GI Bill, where you can go and get a degree from accredited college in gunsmithing and then go out and start your own gunsmithing business, which I think is a really great option. Again, throughout my entire life, gunsmiths have always been able to earn a really good living, assuming they have a really strong work ethic. So please check out Modern Gun School. I do have a link in the video description below. The L85 has an interesting history. So the gun was developed in the 1970s, late 70s, like 1979, I think development started. By the mid-1980s. The rifle had entered into British service, and by 1987, the L85A1 was in circulation. Well, the L85A1 was plagued with a number of problems that went quite public when a report leaked to the media in the UK, and the public outcry against the rifle became pretty pronounced. But that would go from 1987 to the early 2000s, before H&K of Germany was contracted by the small arms Royal Factory, I believe it was, that developed the SA-80 program, which would be the predecessor to the L85. They developed it. They reached out to H&K, or the UK government did, and said, hey, can you help us with this thing? They contracted with them, and the A2 variant would come out in the 2000s, and it would have the reliability issues resolved. And then an A3 version more recently has been released with even more improvements. But this rifle, just like the original, is heavily based on the AR-180. Here I have a BRN 180 upper, and you can see, and we've talked about this upper in the past, it is basically a modern clone of a rifle that a lot of folks love, and that is the AR-180. No longer in production, the AR-180. It was manufactured by a number of different companies over the years, so Brownells decided to bring it back, give it a twist of their own. It's been through several iterations, so I think they're in a Gen 3 version of this upper. You'll want a Gen 2 upper for the best use of this kit. Now, the kit is made by a company called Ali and Kaufman, and they make the conversion kit that turns this into this upper. So basically, very quickly, the parts that you're going to get for the kit is going to be a handguard that will slide over here. You're going to have a front sight that attaches to the Picatinny rail, a rear sight, again, that attaches to the Picatinny rail, this lower housing, which has an AR-15 style hammer in it, this lower housing, which has the trigger and the linkage and everything, the mag well, all this stuff. This is an aluminum lower that will mate to your AR or your BRN 180 upper. And then you have small parts like the charging handle that is very reminiscent of the original L85 design. The mag well looks pretty close as well. You will have to deal with some M-lock slots out here. There's plugs that you can put in there to kind of fill that in to give it even a better look. Of course, then you'll get your butt plate and cheek piece here. And recently I saw a social media post where they have another lower piece that'll pop in here that instead of using an AR-15A2 style green pistol grip, it'll give you the more L85-ish looking pistol grip that would be more clone correct for this rifle. So it's an evolving product. Now, the product is not inexpensive for the components that we're talking about, but it does have a machined lower and things like that that come in the kit, and you're just a little over 800 bucks. I can't give you the exact number or tell you where to find it because YouTube doesn't like me doing that. So to stay out of YouTube purgatory, I'm trying to not break any of their rules. So, but again, it's made by a company called Ally, A-L-Y, and Kaufman, and it's called the AKB23. That's the kit. So this rifle has some of the flaws that you're going to find with the original military service rifle. And one of the key complaints against the original military service rifle is the fact that, well, if you're a left-handed shooter and you joined the British military, you just became a right-handed shooter. Why is that? Well, because when they hand you your service rifle, if you're left-handed and you try to get a sight picture, look where this charging handle is. And it reciprocates when the gun fires. It's not non-reciprocating. So it will whack you in the face. It'll hurt and it'll cause a malfunction. So you're a right-handed shooter. And that's a pretty serious criticism, giving 13% of the population, last time I read about it, was left-handed. So that's going to cause a problem, especially in marksmanship training and things like that. So that's one of the key criticisms against the weapon, and it has it here. But I'm glad that it has that flaw because it makes it more like the original L85. But if you're a left-handed shooter, unless you want to shoot this thing right-handed, it's probably not for you. But loading it up is super simple. I mean, if you're used to bullpups, and I love bullpups, you take your standard snag magazine, insert it into the mag well, and then you just grab your charging handle and pull it to the rear and charge it. Do have a port cover back here, and once you do that, you have a cross block safety right here. So push that way to safe, that way to fire. You'll see a little red indicator indicating hot or danger, which says the weapon's on safe. And if I look over here, I see a white dot and the red dot disappears, indicating the weapon is on safe. It's surprisingly comfortable to shoot. It feels, I don't know. I mean, of course, we are still using, you know, the BRN 180 type gas system and everything in it, but it doesn't feel punchy at all. It's very smooth shooting. The only thing that's a little off is that heavy trigger pull, but again, it's something I can work past very easily. But I know a lot of you guys out there hate bullpups because of their trigger pulls, like the Steyr AUG and things like that. But I just don't have a problem with heavier triggers. But it will be something where you'll probably, first time you fire it, think the weapon's still on safe, but in fact, it's just a little bit heavier trigger pull. Today, it's about 90 degrees outside, so it's pretty warm and very humid, but one of the things I like about the kit is this large handguard. So you have the original BRN 180 aluminum handguard, M-LOK handguard underneath here, and this slides over and attaches to that using the M-LOK slots, but it gives you a lot of airspace around it, which really helps dissipate that heat. We've been shooting this thing all afternoon, and it's never gotten so hot that I couldn't hold on to it. With the BRN 180 and its aluminum handguard, if all you're doing is holding the aluminum handguard, very quickly in a magazine or two, the gun's going to become very, very hot, hard to hold on to. So that, I think, is pretty darn cool. All right, so I have the gun field stripped, and basically, guys, it's just like an AR-15 because the BRN 180 was designed to work with an AR-15 lower. So you have two mounting points here, and you have AR-15 style captive pins here that this will lock into. Now you have a third pin up here, but this is related to the trigger guard, and you don't need to worry about popping that pin out to separate the upper from the lower. Inside, you can see the aluminum chassis down here, and you can see the AR-15 style hammer in there. You can see the ping pong paddle over here for the bolt release. For the bolt stop, this is your magazine release. And then you have QD points, both on the handguard and back here on the rear of the stock. So the machining and everything on this looks really nice. I mean, it's really well done. And I would expect that for the price. Now, right now, with this lower, it can use standard AR-15 style pistol grips, but again, they do have a different piece that's going to pop in here. I just saw pop on X yesterday that has that more traditional L85 pistol grip look to it. I will be upgrading this rifle to that and any other upgrades they come out with, because I have always wanted an L85, and I think this is probably as close as I'm ever going to get, and I'm surprisingly okay with that for the moment. Still want an L85. Anyway, so the only other piece that you're going to, I talked about this, the charging handle. This is the factory BRN 180 charging handle. This is the clone correct version that comes as part of your kit. Now, this is important. This is a Gen 2 end cap on here. The Gen 3s have a locking piece back here, and as far as I know, they have not made this work with the Gen 3 just yet. There's a number of other different changes as well that would make it a little bit awkward for this kit, the left-hand charging and stuff like that of the 3rd gen, which just simply wouldn't work with this. It's just too close to the user's face to be practical. So you'll want a Gen 2. The other thing to take into consideration is that overall length requirement, the 26-inch requirement that I'm talking about earlier in the video. And so this is a 16-inch barrel, right? So this would be a standard 16-inch barrel on an AR-15 style rifle. You can pin this on, you have no concerns about overall length. For this kit to be effective, you need an 18-inch barrel. That's what's on here. So this 18-inch barrel gives me an overall length of over 26 inches, which then makes the gun legal under the unconstitutional US laws. So just keep that in mind. Now, I believe that they're selling a spacer. If you have the 16-inch upper, they have a spacer that's going to give you an extra inch or two back here that will get you to that overall length requirement if all you can find is a 16-inch barrel. At the time when I first picked this kit up, Brownells had notified me that they were no longer going to make the 18-inch upper, and I think the folks over at Ali and Kaufman were talking to them potentially about doing a run for them with the 18-inch uppers. I don't know where all that is. Just keep in mind that the 16-inch upper could get you into legal trouble if you don't get the little spacer back here. Now, the little carrying handle up here is kind of cool. So these are machined aluminum parts, and again, they drop on. This, you do have to take your cheek piece off, slide it over, because it does not just pop on. So you have to slide it up the 1913 rail section, get it where you want it, then tighten it down. Same with the front sight here. Slide it from the front over the 1913 rails. It's not going to pop over, then tighten the tensioning screw. The sights are basically based on the AR-15. You can use an AR-15 sight tool to adjust the front sight for elevation. And then you have a wheel over here. You can use a tip of a bullet for windage like an A1. You'll notice it has an aim point cut right here on the top, which is really cool. So if you want to put an aim point, a T1, T2 micro on there, it'll pop right on, screw straight onto the carrying handle, which is really kind of neat. I'm going for the more classic look, so I'm probably not going to put a red dot sight on it. Now, the trigger pull on this is heavy. It's crisp. I mean, it's a nice sharp trigger pull, but it's heavy. And again, this goes to what I was talking about earlier. This gun is more or less for clone purposes, right? You just want to have some fun with a gun that looks like an L85, shoots like an L85, and this is going to get you there. This is not a match rifle, and having the trigger pull, I have to weigh it, but it's pretty darn heavy. I would say it's well over what you would have in even a bad trigger in AR-15, but totally shootable, and I have a lot of fun with the gun. So that's pretty much it with regards to the kit, what it looks like on the inside, all the stuff you're going to get in the package when you pick the kit up to build your L85 clone. Just remember, folks, try to find that 18-inch barrel, because I have seen at least prototype pictures of the spacer. I just think it looks cleaner in this configuration, and honestly, the 18-inch barrel, you don't even really notice it unless I point it out again by just simply laying the 16-inch upper on top of the 18-inch upper. So anyway, yeah, let's put it back together, do some shooting with this thing, because man, I'm going to tell you right now, I enjoy shooting this thing a whole lot. And again, that's because I've wanted an L85 for years. I was down in Vegas, and I saw one hanging on the wall at those machine gun rental places, and I went back to go shoot it the next day, and they were closed, so I didn't even have a chance to shoot one then. So this is as close as I'm ever going to get to shooting or owning the L85, I fear. So overall, I am happy with the AKB23 kit. It gives me the opportunity to shoot something that I've desperately wanted to shoot and own for many years. Now you will find that parts like this and the Handguard are high quality 3D prints. Maybe in the future they'll do injection molding. It's a startup small company. I've met the owners at SHOT Show, good guys, and I do want to support their efforts to do things like this because I enjoy these types of clones. And so it's just really cool that they, basically risked everything to try to bring this thing to market, which so many small businesses do. So yes, I'm very glad they did it. I'm very glad to have my hands on it. One thing that I did not point out earlier, it slipped my mind, but I do want to point out very quickly. Now keep in mind again, guys, this is a clone, and this one is one of the very first ones that ever shipped. Okay, so I know they're making rolling changes and stuff to the design, but one thing, this is a standard port cover that comes with the BRN 180, but with this enlarged charging handle. We'll see if it'll do it, but it can kind of get caught up on the port cover when it goes to knock it open. If you pull the bolt back slowly, it'll open just fine, but the high velocity with the bolt coming back under gas pressure, sometimes will capture this and keep it from ejecting the spent case. Let's see if that happens. Yep, I felt it. And so it popped the port cover open, but there's a spent case that didn't make it out. That was it. And now it's going to work just fine. So that's one thing to take into consideration, but taking a little material off the back of this charging handle, or maybe taking a little material off the port cover there, I suspect would alleviate that. But overall, again, I'm very happy with this. This is a lot of fun to shoot. If you have any questions about the AKB23, ask those questions down below. I'm going to stick around for a few days after I post this video to answer any questions you guys may have about this kit. If you guys would like to support us here at the Military Arms channel so we can continue to bring you content like this, please consider becoming part of our Patreon family. Also right here on YouTube, there's a link below for that. Right here on YouTube, you got the thanks and support button underneath the video player you're watching right now. Hit either one of those buttons and you can help support us right here on YouTube in the age of demonetization. Please swing by, check out Copper Custom. Thank you for 17 years of support. We'll talk to you guys soon.